Hello, and welcome to the first of 5 webinars designed to provide mentors, higher education faculty, and professional development specialists with the knowledge, skills, and resources needed to facilitate student success on the Education Teacher Performance Assessment, or the edTPA. My name is Catherine Snyder. I'm the Associate Dean of the School of Education at Union Graduate College. I'm also a former public school teacher and a National Board Certified teacher. This webinar series is sponsored by the Commission of Independent Colleges and Universities and is supported by the Independent Sector's Higher Education Faculty Professional Development Initiative, a grant funded by the New York State Education Department. It is my pleasure to introduce the 2 facilitators who will guide you through this very useful set of webinars. Annette Romano is a National Board Certified first grade teacher in the Niskayuna Central School District. Since 2000, she has supported teachers pursuing National Board certification as a member of the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards faculty. Annette also trains National Board Certified teachers to become candidate support providers. Colleen McDonald is also a National Board Certified teacher. Colleen teaches middle and high school English language arts in the Cambridge Central School District. Colleen is a member of the New York State Education Department's Professional Standards and Practices Board and sits on the Commissioner's Teacher Advisory Council. Annette and Colleen have worked together for years on projects related to National Board certification and teacher professional development. Their expertise in the area of teacher excellence is evident throughout this webinar series. The purpose of the first webinar is to provide you with an overview of the edTPA process. Colleen will begin with a brief introduction to the 3 types of thinking and writing required by the edTPA: descriptive, analytical, and reflective. The key role questioning and evidence plays in a candidate's success will be explored, along with important characteristics of the assessment process. You'll be led on a very purposeful crosswalk connecting the standards embedded in the edTPA with New York State Teaching Standards and the New York State Annual Teacher Professional Performance Evaluation process. The edTPA is an authentic assessment designed to model for teacher candidates the standards and expectations of practicing teachers. By mastering the skills needed to pass the edTPA, our teacher candidates are laying the foundation for success in their teaching careers. In subsequent webinars, we will go into more detail about descriptive, analytical, and reflective thinking and writing, and then wrap up with a comprehensive review and synthesis of all the components of the edTPA. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to our webinar series on elevating thinking and writing about teaching and learning. I'm Colleen McDonald, a nationally board certified teacher in Cambridge Central School, and I will be leading you through this overview created by both myself and my partner, Annette Romano. You may find it helpful to read through or refer to the glossary of terms in the edTPA handbook so that all faculty and students are using the new terminology and academic language as a common language while learning. It's also important for all faculty in all content areas to understand the new requirements in the edTPA tasks. Various aspects of this webinar can be applied to all syllabi. Annette and I are truly honored to share our insights as we prepare this next generation of teachers for the teaching profession. As you know, the new edTPA tasks mirror many of the requirements created by the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards, or NBPTS, to identify accomplished teaching practice. Like the National Board certification process and the new Annual Professional Performance Review, or APPR, which is the New York State Teacher Evaluation Framework, edTPA is also based on standards and evidence. We have developed these 5 webinars to give you a sense of the critical thinking behind the tasks and the 3 types of writing required. This webinar is an overview of the components and sets the context for the series. In this overview, we will discuss the new edTPA professional landscape by reviewing the New York State Teaching Standards and weaving together where they meet the edTPA criteria. We will also discuss the importance of questioning to elevate our students' thinking and writing, the importance of evidence collection, and the 3 types of writing required within the edTPA tasks. These 7 New York State Teaching Standards were adopted in 2011 after a significant amount of input from teachers, faculty of schools of education, and various organization and national experts. They articulate our professional teaching practice and can be found on www.engagenewyork.org in further detail. Pre-service teachers should have in-depth conversations about these standards and know how they look within their certification areas, developmental levels, and classroom contexts. There are a variety of teacher evaluation rubrics which have been approved by New York State, but it is important to understand that all of the approved rubrics evaluate these 7 New York State teaching standards, and each school district has adopted one of them as the basis for their teacher evaluation or APPR plan. All teachers will be evaluated based on evidence collected for each of these 7 standards. edTPA stands for Educational Teacher Performance Assessment. Each teacher candidate will be required to complete 3 or 4 tasks which will lead to state licensure in their certificate area. The required performance tasks will be scored using criteria in 5 areas: planning, instruction, assessing student learning, analyzing teaching, and academic language. The glossary of terms in the edTPA handbook is essential for all faculty, students, supervisors, and cooperating teachers in order to establish a common language using the new terminology and academic language. So let's examine how the edTPA criteria align with the New York State Teaching Standards and the New York State Teacher Evaluation Framework, which is called the Annual Professional Performance Review, also known as the APPR, which we will use the acronym to refer to the process for practicing teachers throughout the rest of this overview. New York State requires practicing teachers to be formally observed annually. This is their opportunity to provide evidence of the 7 teaching standards to their evaluator. There are 3 phases to an observation: pre-observation, observation, and post-observation. During the pre-observation, the teacher will present evidence of the first 3 teaching standards: knowledge of students, instructional planning, and content knowledge. In edTPA, this may look like gathering evidence for tasks in the areas of context for learning, planning, and academic language criteria. Tasks may require students to describe their instructional context, submit lesson plans, discuss their goals and lesson activities, as well as how they will meet the needs of various learners and how they will assess student learning. The pre-observation sets the stage. It is the opportunity for candidates and/or teachers to link their professional decision-making to the standards, the students, and the student performance. Let's watch as Principal Silvernell looks for some of these things prior to watching the lesson.
What would you expect would be the learning outcomes for your students based on this lesson?
Well, hopefully, as you know, the lesson is actually our final project for the year. And so the lesson outcomes are, I want to make sure that the kids can synthesize information and take different sources of information to formulate their own opinions and answer the essential question. So this is within the project, this is a piece and a checkpoint to make sure that they're in the process of doing that, and it'll allow me to see where they're at in that process and where they're maybe a little bit off or where they're right on.
So in terms of fit with the entire unit of study, it's kind of the culminating activity.
It is
to
the
that.
culminating activity.
Are there any specific activities that you plan to use to accomplish this goal?
Yes, we did. It has been over 2 days, and so we did an activity yesterday that leads up to the activity today, which I can talk to you about. But today's activity is a Socratic seminar. And what we'll do is they're going to see a short video, which is the second piece of information that they'll synthesize. Mm-hmm. They did an article for homework, a nonfiction article, and then they're also either reading Animal Farm or they're creating their own superhero. And so depending on which of those projects they chose, they're addressing the issue of what literature is and how it comments on the human condition. So some of them are actually approaching it as the author of literature because they're now creating their own superhero and they have to thread that in. The other group is responding to George Orwell's representation of mankind.
Okay, and so they
Farm.
had a choice of which way they
Yes.
would like to approach this project.
Yes. As you just saw, this is a time that teachers or candidates can articulate the professional decision-making around the context for learning and planning. Next, in APPR and the life of a practicing teacher, the evaluator observes the teacher teaching the lesson that they have discussed. Like in the National Board process and in edTPA, the candidate submits a videotaped lesson. They will analyze the lesson and cite evidence of student engagement, positive learning environment, and analyze their teaching effectiveness. These also clearly align with the New York State Teaching Standards, instructional practice, and learning environment. Then the post-observation process for APPR and how it aligns across the edTPA and teaching standards for assessment components, and what you as a teacher will do with the information and data that you have gathered. What are your next steps in the classroom? What worked? What would you change? And what do you need to reteach? These are all questions that will help guide this post-observation conference. The edTPA commentary relates to this portion of the APPR, which is locally negotiated, and most likely will look in the field like an evidence binder, which practicing teachers use to collect and submit various pieces of evidence not seen in the classroom observation. This portion of the process really encompasses or represents the entire edTPA process, as it is task and performance-based. In preparing for edTPA, it will be helpful for candidates to have in-depth discussions and time on each task. Modeling and embedding these types of tasks and various levels of questioning in your syllabi and class discussions will better prepare your students for edTPA and the field. Recognizing and gathering various types of measurable, non-judgmental evidence will take practice, and that practice is and will be essential for everyone. As you can see, evidence is multifaceted and observable. If we look to unpack some of these examples or words like indication can be seen through student responses and discussion or activating prior knowledge. The teacher will make professional decisions about moving forward or possibly common misconceptions. Demonstrate. This may be evidenced through an exit ticket, but will always evidence student learning. Show. Also a type of formative assessment. It may take the form of written responses that can also show student learning. Candidates will gather evidence to submit to edTPA in many forms. Much of it will be written, including plans, instructional materials, prompts, or reflective commentary. although videos will also be used to assess evidence. Each edTPA task requirement, written or video, will be scored by multiple rubrics aligned to a 5-point range. Just as teachers in the field will be scored on rubrics through the APPR process, which typically reflect a 4-point rubric score, using terms from ineffective to highly effective. In order for our candidates to be successful, they will need 4 types of support: intellectual, technical, emotional, and logistical. Located in your participant manual, you will find a graphic organizer titled The 4 Types of Support. Please take a moment and jot down a few thoughts in each category which will help your candidates prepare for their edTPA tasks. On the opposite page, you will see some examples of each type. You might find that you are more comfortable with one type of support than others. It's important to be aware of your strengths and make sure that your candidates have resources for all 4 of these areas. As we previously indicated, modeling and embedding activities such as turn and talk, peer conferencing, will help elevate your candidates' thinking. This higher thinking will later transfer into their writing and video analysis. It's important to remember these types of thinking are embedded in the edTPA tasks: descriptive, analytical, and reflective. We will need to be sure that we focus on the thinking, which then leads to or transfers into the writing, rather than having candidates think that there is some set formula for writing an edTPA. In your participant manual, write down key words and phrases that help define the meaning of each type of thinking. Now take a minute to develop a few question stems for that level of thinking as it might appear in the tasks. Evidence. It is essential that we remember that it is what happened in the instructional setting. It should have absolutely no judgments or justifications. This is the assessor's window into your classroom and lesson. It will be how they see and come to know your students and instructional context. This writing depicts the candidate's professional level of thinking, offering reasons, motives, and interpretation. Analytical writing is often the most difficult form of writing and must be grounded in their evidence. Reflective writing is all about contemplating, pondering, evaluating, and planning next steps. It is a time to take that deep breath and figure out what worked for you and your students, what could be improved or built upon. In this webinar, you have seen how these pieces fit together in your candidate's professional future. As you can see, your work is essential in building the bridge from theory in the college classroom to practice in classrooms everywhere. So what are our next steps? Well, the better we can articulate and align our practice, the stronger our profession will become, ultimately having a positive impact on every child we teach. So in the next webinars, we will take the time to dive deeply into each of the 3 types of thinking and writing. In the meantime, here are some resources that may help you navigate these terms, expectations, and direction.
Thank you for watching the overview webinar. This is the first in a series of 5 webinars developed through sponsorship from the Commission of Independent Colleges and Universities. This project is supported by the Independent Sector's Higher Education Faculty Professional Development Initiative, a grant funded by the New York State Education Department. We invite you to proceed to the next webinar in the series, which focuses on descriptive thinking in writing. During that webinar, Annette and Colleen will build on your understanding of the edTPA by diving into the meaning and purpose of descriptive thinking in writing. Please consider taking a moment to complete our feedback survey that's online. We hope you found this helpful and look forward to your participation in the next webinar. Thank you.